Hello everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. So a while ago, I saw a video by Dr. Sean McDowell, who is a Protestant apologist, where he interviewed the author of the book Celebrities for Jesus. And without actually watching the video or doing further research on what the book was actually about, I bought it because it sounded interesting. I was curious what moral guidelines for being a celebrity for Jesus the author would present. The thing is that I won't make a summary of the book because at least half of its content was specifically about Protestant celebrities that I've never heard of, or problems that especially Protestants are dealing with, so I can't recommend the book as a whole for Catholics. But it got me thinking, and in this video I'd like to share some thoughts from the book that I found particularly interesting and link them to some other sources because you seem to have enjoyed this more creative approach to talk about a book as I saw last week. So the full title of this book is Celebrities for Jesus, How Personas, Platforms, and Profits Are Hurting the Church. And as the title says, it's about people who become famous for Jesus. The author, Caitlin Beatty, talks about the dangers of being an influencer for Jesus, as some people might just want to do what the world does and put the label Catholic on it. To demonstrate how many people, especially young people, want to become influencers, I like to mention that a study by Morning Consult, which I'll link in the description, showed that most young Americans would become influencers if they had the opportunity to. And there are many studies that show that one of the dream jobs teenagers have nowadays is being an influencer. Miss Beatty also talks about celebrities that didn't get famous on the internet, but I would like to focus this video on the moral guidelines or concerns for passive and active internet use. So passive would be that you're just consuming content, and active would mean that you're actually, uploading a YouTube video or something like that. I'd like to start with talking about some important points the author makes in the book. For example, she writes that some celebrities use their fame as a tool to bring people closer to Jesus and are willing to part with that tool as soon as it no longer serves this purpose. And others have realized that those apps have more power over the user than the user has over it, and so they don't use those apps. She doesn't explicitly say to do this and to avoid that, but I think that it would be helpful for every content creator, regardless of how many followers they have, to ask themselves this question: would they be willing to stop their online ministry as soon as they realize that it's no longer God's will? Miss Beatty writes that in earlier days, fame depended on what you achieved, while celebrities today are just known for their well-knownness. And I've been thinking about whether this is true, and I have to disagree, as in my opinion, the vast majority of people who are famous worked for their fame in some way or the other, and it didn't just happen to them. For example, I would be able to say for every bigger YouTuber I follow why he or she has that big of an audience, as they all have some unique selling proposition. And I don't know about other apps, but it takes a lot of work to create a YouTube video, so their fame didn't just happen to them. But back to the book. The author explains that fame itself isn't sinful. It just comes with certain temptations, like, for example, pride, and she says that the best famous people are the ones who seem to think about fame the least. Another risk associated with fame is that people might represent their faith poorly, and if a famous person represents the faith poorly, the negative impact that has on others is obviously far greater than if someone did that in private. The author also made me aware of the problems that come with a scenario that a well-known Christian celebrity or influencer does something morally reprehensible. She names the example of some Protestant celebrity I've never heard of, but of course the same problem applies to Catholic influencers. Just imagine how it would impact your faith life if your favorite Catholic YouTuber was involved in some moral scandal. This shouldn't have an impact on your faith life because the church isn't a hotel for saints but a hospital for sinners, as Father Mike wrote in his book on same-sex attraction, but I can imagine that in reality, many people would be negatively influenced by a scandal like that. Miss Beatty also writes about the problem that books by famous people might get published even if the content of the book isn't actually that great, just because the publishing company knows that the book will sell well because the author is famous. And as you might know, I've made a video a while ago where I talked about having read a book by every major Catholic YouTuber I knew of, and I can say that I had the same concerns as the author, but it just doesn't seem to be true with the books I've read, because there were some excellent books there, and there were some good books there, and there were some mediocre books there, but I think that's just a common phenomenon with books. There are better books and there are worse books, so I wouldn't say that books by Catholic YouTubers are worse than other Catholic books which were written in the 21st century. All the moral questions around being an influencer for Jesus are a relatively new phenomenon, and there are no canonized saints who were influencers yet, because most influencers are still alive, and being alive is a major impediment for the canonization process. The only internet saint would be Carlo Acutis, who isn't a canonized saint yet, but he was beatified in 2020, and if you're unfamiliar with him, he programmed a website where he documented Eucharistic miracles. The main difference I see between Carlo Acutis and today's influencers is that he became famous after his death, because although his name is shown on that website, there are no pictures of him there, so people wouldn't have recognized him if they met him on the street, so he didn't have to deal with the temptations that come with fame. I like to use this opportunity to thank the people who make the subtitles for my videos, because while I get the credit for this channel because I'm the person who appears in the videos, only a handful of people know who does my subtitles, and these people don't get anything for that. So I find it truly admirable and inspiring that they help me with the subtitles exclusively for God's greater glory. Now, I'd also like to talk about passive social media use, and here I'd like to start off by saying that I acknowledge that the internet is an incredibly powerful tool, both for evil, but definitely also for good. And I'd like to shed some light on both the moral dangers of the internet, but also the opportunities for spiritual development it gives us. Let's consider the positive aspects first. Because of the internet and social media, we have access to hundreds, if not thousands, of free Catholic books. If we have a question regarding a matter of faith, we can just type it into Google or YouTube, and there will often be a high quality answer, like for example the videos on Ascension Presents. And last but definitely not least, we are presented with, or we have the ability to meet, an unprecedented number of Catholic role models who show us how they live out their faith boldly and encourage us to do that as well. I believe that it's incredibly encouraging to see someone doing the same thing you do, even if that person is on the other side of the ocean. For example, in Austria, where I live, being a Catholic YouTuber isn't a thing, and the fact that there are relatively many Catholic YouTubers in the US really encouraged me to have a YouTube channel myself. This is actually so uncommon in Austria that when I uploaded my first video on this channel, a Catholic friend of mine asked me if someone forced me to do this. Another thought I'd like to share is that the internet seems to be an amplifier of your intentions. If you want to donate money, it's easier with the internet. If you want to evangelize, you can reach more people through the internet. But also if you want to sin, the internet gives you the tools to do so even more easily, which leads us to the dangers of social media and the internet in general. Maybe you've seen somewhere a picture like this, which shows that each of the main social media apps represents one of the 7 deadly sins. In my opinion, you can rotate the sins to whatever app you like, as it's possible to commit most sins on most social media platforms, depending on what your personal weakness is. The only sin I struggle to find an app for is gluttony, and here I chose YouTube because, people can watch those 10,000 calories challenges where they try to eat 10,000 calories in a day, but admittedly, it's a little stretch to say that the main sin on YouTube is gluttony. For intemperance, there are many apps, but for gluttony, in my opinion, there really aren't. But it's also possible to use social media without even realizing that it might be a temptation for one of the deadly sins. For example, you could use Instagram just for memes or YouTube just for education. One of the biggest problems with social media is its addictiveness, because in order to become saints, we have to be free from all attachment. And being addicted to something is a very strong form of attachment. In part, that's what fasting is for. It's to free us from attachments through mortification. As Saint Philip Neri said, where there is no great mortification, there is no great sanctity. Or as Saint John of the Cross said, the soul that is attached to anything, however much good there may be in it, will not arrive at the liberty of divine union. For whether it be a strong wire rope or a slender and delicate thread that holds the bird, it matters not if it really holds it fast, for until the cord be broken, the bird cannot fly. Here it's important to distinguish between the problem of addiction and the problem of time waste, because those two problems are not the same. You can be addicted to something without directly wasting time, like a caffeine addiction, and you can waste time without being addicted to something like, for example, when you procrastinate instead of working or studying. Addiction is a problem because it's a form of attachment, as described before, and time waste also is a problem, as we should use our time to acquire merits for eternity, as St. Alphonsus Liguori writes. Let us remember that time is given us not to be spent unprofitably, but to be employed for God and in acquiring merits for eternity. I'd be interested in your opinion here, whether you think that some social media apps are worse than others in this regard. I personally see a big problem with the concept of TikTok, which can be also found in YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, because even highly disciplined people with great self-control struggle with an excessive consumption of these short-format videos. An example would be Lukas Steinfeld, who is a German YouTuber now, but before that he worked at Facebook and ranked first at his university in his computer science program. So in short, he's a person who works hard, and he admitted in one of his videos that even though he usually doesn't have a problem with self-control, he finds TikTok-like videos highly addictive. What I'm trying to say is that if even the most disciplined people struggle with those short-format videos, they pose an even greater danger for the average person. If you have a different opinion here, please share it in the comments, but in my opinion, with this type of videos, the negative aspects outweigh any possible positive aspect. I'd like to end this video with a hack how to reduce one's unintentional social media use, and that is to download a browser extension that gets rid of your newsfeed. The two browser extensions I know of are Newsfeed Eradicator, which replaces your feed with a quote, and Unhook, which just gets rid of your newsfeed. You can also hide the comment section of a video, or you can hide the video recommendations or notifications, depending on what distractions you want to get rid of. This isn't sponsored in any way, I'm just actually using those browser extensions and they are a game changer. That's been it for today. I hope you liked the video. See you next week. God bless and bye!